Hi, I'm Ryan Szymanski, curator for Battleship New Jersey Museum and Memorial. The internet got super excited this past week when on episode 6, season 3 of Picard, the Star Trek show, they showed a New Jersey as a museum starship, and she was there at a fleet museum with a ton of other major ships like every Enterprise ever built, I guess. I don't watch Star Trek. I'm not sure what was there, but people lost their minds, and everybody and their mother forwarded it to me. So today we're going to talk about the portrayal of museum ships in television and what they get right and what they get wrong. So let's start off talking about the portrayal of New Jersey as a museum ship in Star Trek Picard. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Blinkist is an app that allows you to understand the most important things from over 5,500 nonfiction books and podcasts in about just 15 minutes each. With the help of Blinkist, you can discover new perspectives, broaden your horizons, have exciting conversations, and experience aha moments. I like Blinkist because I'm working 2 jobs and writing a book right now. I do not have time to read full-length books. However, releasing one of these videos every single day requires me to learn something new every single day. And Blinkist, taking up just 15 minutes of my time while I'm driving to or from work, allows me to do that.
A feature I love is Blinkist Connect. This allows every Blinkist premium plan to be shared by 2 different accounts. It's no additional cost to you, and it's free to the person who you invite for as long as you're sharing it with them. That means me and my camera person can find new inspiration together.
For me, I just finished listening to their Blink On War by von Clausewitz. This has been one of those books that's been on my list to read for a long time, but I've never had the time to tackle it. And honestly, books like that are a pain for me to sit there and read. But it's one of those critical books for military historians to understand. And Blinkist allowed me to do that by breaking their report up into the exact same chapters that von Clausewitz originally broke them up into back in the 19th century.
It's a challenging work, made all the more so by the fact that it was unfinished when the author died. But that's why your friends at Blinkist are here.
Get 25% off Blinkist Premium and enjoy 2 memberships for the price of 1. Start your 7-day free trial at the link in the description below.
Picard was one of the most fan-servicey things I've ever seen, and it seems like it did it right and hit all the right notes. For those of you who do watch Star Trek, you absolutely went crazy. From what I've been told talking to some of you guys, they have mentioned this Starfleet Museum in the past, but they've never shown it before. So finally showing this museum and all of your favorite ships from all of the good and those handful of bad Star Trek shows over the years was super cool for you guys. And it seemed like every ship there was a named hero ship. And then they also included a New Jersey, which for me is super awesome. There are about 170 warships preserved as museums that are members of HINSA. There's probably more than that as museum ships around the world, but that gives you a rough idea. There's 170 preserved museum ships that you can go and visit, and they chose the name New Jersey to be the one non-hero ship portrayed. They inserted this non-hero ship specifically to show a Constitution-class cruiser in its original series configuration. People tell me that that's super cool because the Constitution class is named after famous ships. The Japanese Congo, the British Hood, the American Enterprise. And now, the one that's preserved in her more or less original series configuration is New Jersey. I can't wait until future Star Trek shows flesh out the history of this ship. But for now, it's super exciting that she's there. So, let's talk about why Starfleet Museum is going to be an absolute failure. First of all, they put every single museum ship they have in one place. These are all capital ships, spacefaring vessels able to maintain hundreds of crew across vast distances. They're large ships. If you look at this picture of the orbital station where they're all docked, you can see, I don't know, what's that, a dozen, 16 ships? Maybe on the low end it's 8. I don't do the county. But there are all these huge museum ships. Can you imagine a museum that just has all 8 battleships in it? Most visitors do not get through Battleship New Jersey's tour route in a single day. While I enjoy visiting every museum ship I can, most of the rest of my family is like, oh, it's another boat. I'm like, no, this one's a submarine. It's completely different from a battleship. No, it's just another boat. I don't want to go and see it. But given all of these ships in one place, also orbital space station, so I assume there's nothing else to do. There's no Disney World nearby. So you have to book a flight there. You get to this orbital station, and then I don't know how long you stay there, but you just spend day in and day out visiting museum ships. That appeals to a smaller percentage of the population than you might think. And it implies that Starfleet or their government or whoever is maintaining all of these ships. There's no way that they're getting the visitor revenue to pay for these, so it's paid for by the government, your tax money. Currently, the United States Navy, the most powerful, highest funded Navy in the world, maintains 2 museum ships. The sailing ship Constitution and the submarine Nautilus. Not a full-size capital ship, 2 of the smallest museum ships that are preserved. Can you imagine Starfleet constantly getting into wars with the guys that have the weird ridges on the face or the guys that have no eyebrows, having a huge part of their budget going to pay for these non-combat vessels that people presumably aren't visiting? Like the Starfleet Museum would be an absolute failure for the Empire, whatever they are. How is it possible to make it work? Yeah, absolutely. Are those ships significant? Yeah, they're the hero ships of the series. They've gone further into deep space and blown up more nameless bad guys and done more genocide or exploration, those 2 usually go hand in hand, than anybody else. So they're worth preserving as museum ships. They should be dispersed among, I think this is a cluster of planets in Star Trek, so they should be dispersed among the various planets, not all in one place that's really difficult to get to. It's nothing at all like real-world museum ships. In the real world, the most famous ships don't tend to get preserved. And that's what I like about New Jersey being there. You don't preserve the most famous Constitution-class cruiser. Enterprise gets destroyed at some point. It makes sense that New Jersey is preserved because she is the same type of museum ship as that, because they couldn't get the original. That makes good sense. The fact that all of these other hero ships are preserved is awesome and fan servicey, but not likely. I think it would be more likely that you would see ships similar to those hero ships being saved, but not necessarily every single hero ship. Those are the problems with museum ships as portrayed by Star Trek. How do some other series get it right or wrong? As you can tell, I've got no idea what's going on in Star Trek. I've seen some of the movies, but that's pretty much it. The sci-fi series that I like best of all is Battlestar Galactica. In the miniseries, Galactica is a veteran of the last set of wars against the evil killer robots, and she is in the process of being decommissioned and turned into a museum ship. And that's one of the reasons why I connect with that show so much more deeply than the show about Starfleet colonizing the galaxy. Battlestar Galactica sort of gets portraying a museum ship wrong in that she's basically on her day of decommissioning when the series starts and the apocalypse starts. And they're able to go and refuel the ship and fill the ship with ammunition, and they've got a crew on board still, and they're able to then operate for years without repair and resupply. The thing that Galactica does right is it portrays the ship as another character on the show. And I feel like that's probably something that most of these sci-fi shows get right. The Millennium Falcon in Star Wars, many of the hero ships in Star Trek, I imagine you guys have a deep connection with them, and that's why it was so awesome to see them preserved as museum ships. Galactica, they do a really great job of making the ship one of the characters, and that is how I feel about the museum ships I've worked on, like New Jersey's. This is a living, breathing thing with a personality of her own, and these shows do a really good job of capturing that. Could you bring ammunition and sailors and fuel on board today and operate the ship? No, it would take months. Now, Galactica sort of gets a pass on this because they're able to immediately, they are still in commission technically when the show starts. The big issue is that they're able to operate for as long as they do without any sort of major repairs. And that's something that the show does really well. Again, is they show progressive damage on the ship season by season. And by the end of it, she is beat to hell like most of your museum ships after decades in service. She looks like Battleship Texas by the end of her career. So, that is an awesome tie-in to the movie Battleship. Galactica works because it is a ship that is still in service, and they're able to go to a ammunition depot and resupply and get underway. Something that doesn't work is the movie Battleship, where a bunch of former crew and veterans of the ship pair up to go fight aliens somehow, and they do this by going onto the Battleship Missouri. Now, another disclaimer, much like Star Trek, I have never seen this movie. I will never watch this movie. But it seems like all they have to do is throw the snack machines overboard and cut the anchor chain, and the ship is able to sail again. Some museum ships do still have oil in their tanks. It has degraded to the point that it is more like an acid eating away the steel. It is not something you can pump and burn in your boilers. They're able to get the ship underway right away. It takes 24 hours to work up steam. They have live ammunition on board. Museum ships that have live ammunition on board have EOD show up and take that ammunition away and blow it up. Like, there is no part of that movie that is remotely accurate. Vaguely, in that there are a bunch of veterans of the ship hanging around who are doing repairs and things like that. Battleship New Jersey's volunteer force is partially made up by Navy and military veterans. One or two of them from this ship, most just from other ships or even other branches of the military. But they do a tremendous amount of repairs, and in many ways, they know their way around the ship better than most of the staff here. So if Rihanna showed up to put the ship back in service, she would be better served by asking one of them what to do than by asking the marketing person, the development person, whoever, the accountant. Like, not to disparage them, their jobs do not involve going around the ship and making things power up and operate again. The most realistic thing is the dedication of those volunteers. The alien apocalypse has happened. Aliens have landed on Oahu and they're trying to steal a satellite dish, and they've sunk the entire U.S. Navy. So the and some Japanese maritime self-defense force ships, if I remember correctly. And the survivors are going to find the next ship left afloat. And it happens to be the Battleship Missouri, which, by the way, no live ammunition, no fuel. But even though the apocalypse has happened, these volunteers are so dedicated that they still came into work. You notice there were no tourists on the ship. They were all running and screaming somewhere, I assume. But the volunteers still showed up to work. And I could absolutely see Battleship New Jersey's volunteers still showing up while the Cylons are attacking, or whatever the case is. A volcano's going off. Actually, this last week, a paint company dumped a ton of chemicals into the river, and everybody's concerned about the drinking water. And you know what? Our volunteers still showed up every day. They're not elbowing their way through a Walmart parking lot to try and get a case of water bottles. The final portrayal of a museum ship in pop culture I want to bring up is one that gets relatively close to accurate. I've got one problem with it. If you've watched the Disney Channel show National Treasure, in episode 1, the destroyer USS Kidd shows up as a museum ship, and the main character of the show is a former tour guide on Kidd. I think that's the coolest thing. Besides the movie National Treasure, where the aircraft carrier Intrepid shows up, this is the first time that a museum ship, like a real museum ship, has showed up playing a museum ship in television that I can think of. She's only in that one episode. It's not really much of a plot point, but it's really cool. And they have an awesome tour guide in the gift shop who, I just love this character. I've worked with guys like him. That part is really great. And I'm told that my peers who are on the staff of USS Kidd provided a lot of input to get that scene as accurate as possible. The thing where they could not provide input, the conceit of the episode that they were not able to change, was that the reason that the main characters meet up with the bad guys in Kidd's gift shop is because there's military police there protecting the ship. The Navy has absolutely nothing to do with museum ships, unless I call in and say I've got live ordnance here, then they send out EOD for the day. But like, there are no military police here, there are no active duty military here, we get no federal funding, there is no Navy support like that whatsoever. So that is a strange conceit. And it could have just been as easily as, hey, I used to work there. I know that so-and-so police officer shows up for a coffee every day at noon. Let's schedule it then. It doesn't have to be, well, let's go there because the military police will be there to protect us. But those are the things that I've noticed that popular media gets wrong about museum ships. They're ready to go right away. They still have some military support, presence, police force, something like that. That the most historic ships are the ones that are saved. That those ships can then operate again, possibly for years at a time, while sustaining major damage without repairs. And that you can group all of these things together, and that you can group all of these things together and they will be a successful museum that will be able to attract large parts of the population and fund their own preservation. What are some other shows or media that portray museum ships? Let us know in the comment section down below. What are some other things you've noticed that these shows and movies get wrong? What are some things that you think they get right? Let us know in the comment section down below. Battleship New Jersey receives operating support from the New Jersey Department of State, also from a number of other businesses and private individuals like yourselves. In particular, we appreciate the support from Blinkist. Remember to check the link in the description below for more about them. You can support Battleship New Jersey by liking, sharing, and subscribing so more people find out about us and our channel. Thanks for watching.